Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second lecture for the subject MKAB 213A, Engineering Mechanics. And for today, we will be discussing yung force vector basics natin. Okay, so after introducing to you some basic concept, how to convert one unit into another unit or from one system, yung SI system natin to English system and vice versa, we will now proceed on how to deal with yung forces na tinatawag natin. Okay? And in dealing with this, we need to be familiar on what are the laws that we can use in order to use or to combine these forces and to arrive with the value of the resultant and its direction. Okay? But before that, ito yung ating magiging outline and outcome for today's lesson. Number one is to introduce to you um, yung force vector natin. Then we will discuss vector operations, vector addition of forces, procedure for analysis of such problems, and then we will be having four sets of example problems. Okay, so at the end of this module, I hope you'll be able to demonstrate how to add forces and resolve them into components. Also to apply yung parallelogram and triangle rule na i-discuss natin later on. And then of course, to solve problems showing the use of force vector and applying these laws dun sa mga example problems natin. Alright, so to start, let's first have our introduction in and define yung physical quantities that we will observe in engineering mechanics. As said, all physical quantities in engineering mechanics are measured using either scalars or vector. I know this is not a new term to you guys kasi sa physics, ginagamit na din to. Pero let's reiterate, no? So scalar is any positive or negative physical quantity that can be completely specified by its magnitude. So ibig sabihin, by magnitude alone, we can already say what or this say or detail yung physical quantity na tinutukoy natin. Examples nito are length, mass, and time. No? So when we are pertaining to length, basta ilagay natin yung base unit natin, may it be in meters, no? Or inches, or sa mass in grams, okay? Or in pounds. Sa time in seconds. That quantity alone signifies yung magnitude nung in-specify natin. Okay? Then we also have yung tinatawag natin vector. So si vector is any physical quantity that requires both a magnitude and also direction. So ito yung kaibahan niya with scalar. So when we talk about vector, we are very strict that these two criteria must be satisfied. It should have a magnitude and also a direction. So wag walang direction yung isang physical quantity and you are trying to pertain it to a vector quantity, hindi siya magiging applicable, no? So, what are examples of this? So, si force, syempre, kasi when you're defining a force, kailangan may direction. Pag sinabi mo halimbawa 15 newtons, saan, no? Which direction? Upward ba? Downward? To east, no? To west? So, dapat specified siya. So, sa position, no? So, kung meron tayong um, reference point, so paano natin ma-identify yung position kung hindi natin i-describe kung left ba nung reference point natin, to the right, or slightly to the left, no? So, kailangan may direction. And then, of course, moment din, no? Kasi moment can rotate counterclockwise and clockwise. So, dapat meron tayong direction also. Okay? So, a vector is shown graphically by an arrow as shown dito, no? So, as you can see here, we have here an arrow. So, yung length daw niya represent yung magnitude niya nung vector natin. So, ibig sabihin kung how much yung magnitude. So, ibig sabihin kung when I make this longer, ibig sabihin, if we are comparing the two arrows, no? The new arrow is much bigger or much larger ang magnitude compared with the first one kasi mas longer siya yung length niya. Okay? So, When I make this smaller naman, ibig sabihin, the magnitude is lower or less than the magnitude of the first figure. Okay? Also, we have the angle between the vector and the fixed axis na yun yung nagde-define ng line of action natin. As you can see here, ang pinaka-fixed reference axis natin is always the positive x-axis ng Cartesian plane natin. So, halimbawa, ito yung Cartesian plane natin, di ba? Meron tayong x and y. So, halimbawa, ito yung force natin. Para malaman yung direction niya, kung i-define mo, pinapahanap sa'yo yung direction, force na yan, you have to refer it dito sa positive x-axis natin. Tapos, tsaka mo sa i-rotate doon. Okay? So, yung angle na hinahanap sa kanya is based from the fixed reference point, which is the x-axis, papunta dun sa force na naka-apply natin o yung force na dinedefine natin. Okay? Then, yung header tip yung head, ito yung head, no? Or yung tip ng ating arrow, indicates yung sense of direction ng vector natin. So, makikita natin, slightly moving upward to the right, no? Yung direction natin. So, yun yung direction ng force natin. So, when we see a force na vertically upward, assuming na straight line yun, no? So, ibig sabihin, going north yung ating force. So, si arrow, yung tip, yung head ng arrow natin, yung mismong arrowhead natin, indicates yung sense ng direction ng vector natin. Okay? Then next, we also need to discuss yung vector operations na ginagamit for vectors. Okay? So, yung first one is multiplication and division of a vector by a scalar. So, meaning by a magnitude alone, no? So, if a vector is multiplied by a positive scalar, syempre yung magnitude niya will be increased by that amount. Kapag multiplied naman by a negative scalar, it will also change the directional sense of the vector. So, this can be further explained by the figure shown, no? So, as you can see here, let's say we have a force vector A. Then, if we multiply it by a positive 2 scalar, magiging doble yung magnitude niya, and then nakita nyo mas longer yung length niya. Ibig sabihin mas mataas yung ano niya, no? Or exactly double nitong first one. And then nakita nyo same pa din siya ng sense ng direction, moving to the right, upward to the right, no? Then when we try to multiply that original number by a negative quantity, makikita mo since halimbawa by negative 1 only, multiply natin ng scalar na negative 1 ito, magiging negative yung value ng magnitude, and then yung direction natin will be the opposite sense nung original direction natin. Okay? Then when we multiply a smaller scalar, like let's say negative 0.5 dun sa mismong vector natin, as you can see, naging half yung length niya, which signify na this length is much smaller and different in direction than the first vector natin. Okay? So, yun lang muna yung scalar multiplication and division for a vector, no? Next, we have yung vector addition. So, sa vector addition, sabi, all vector quantities obey yung tinatawag natin parallelogram law of addition. And yung procedure on how to construct yung parallelogram law is indicated in 3 steps, no? First daw is to join the tails of the component at a point so that it makes them concurrent. So, ibig sabihin ng concurrent, they are starting at the same point, no? So let's say we have two vectors like this one, no? We have vector A and vector B. Para do sa first point, do sa first procedure, ang sabi niya, i-join daw natin yung tails niya, no? Yung tails niya para to make them concurrent. And as you can see dito, pinag-join dito, no? Ito yung tail ni A, tail ni B, pinagpatong sila, no? So ito na yung point na yon. So magka-join na sila. So ito yung first step natin. Okay? Next. Next step is from the head of B, draw a line parallel to A, then draw another line from the head of A that is parallel to B. These two lines intersect at a point to form the adjacent sides of the parallelogram. Okay? So, from the head of A daw, draw ka ng line na parallel dito sa B, no? So, kaya ito yung parallel line na yon. And then from the head of B, draw ka ng parallel sa A. So, ito yan, yung parallel dito. And yung intersection ng parallel lines na draw natin, we will call that as P. And then this side, no, correspond do sa side ng parallelogram natin. And di ba ang parallelogram is a quadrilateral, no, or a rectangle na i-slide natin to form such shape, no? Anong uh, anong special condition or property ni parallelogram? Uh, si parallelogram is yung opposite sides niya are the same ng value, no? Or equal length. Ibig sabihin, kung ano yung length nito, siya din yung length nitong side na to. Kung ano yung length na to, yun din yung length nitong side na to. That is also true when we are talking about dun sa angle niya, no? Interior angle na. Bawa yung angle nito is also equal dito sa angle na to. Then yung angle nito is equal dito sa angle na to. That is a parallelogram. Okay? Next. Sabi sa number 3, the diagonal of this parallelogram that extends to P forms R, no? Which then represent the resultant of the vector. So pag kinonect daw natin yung point P, no, from the starting point o yung sa concurrent point ng tails nila, going dun sa P, ang form natin yung R, na tinatawag natin resultant. Kasi resultant, siya yung addition nung vector natin. So it represents the addition of our vectors A and B. So yan po yung ginagawa pag parallelogram. Kasi sa pitang na parallelogram law, we are constructing a parallelogram to represent or to get the resultant of the vectors by forming a point, no, an intersection point between the parallel lines, and then connecting the concurrent point papunta dun sa intersecting point natin, which represents the resultant of our vector. Okay? So, yan yung parallelogram law. So, later meron tayong values na example dyan, which will make it easier to understand, no? Then, we can also add daw B to A. So, ibig sabihin from vector A, pwede daw natin i-add si vector B using triangle rule, no? Which is a special case ng parallelogram law whereby yung vector B daw is added to A by ang tinatawag nating head-to-tail fashion, no? So, kapag nagko-construct ka naman ng triangle rule, head-to-tail fashion ka. So, halimbawa, yung first vector natin ay si A, para ma-construct mo yung triangle, yung mula dun sa head nung first vector, yung second vector mo dun mo i-connect dun sa head no ano, yeah. So, kaya ito. And then, yung mula dun sa head nung last vector, tapos yung sa tail nung first vector, pag kinonect natin, that will be also the resultant. No? So, makaka-form ka ng triangle, kaya triangle rule siya. And as you can see here, itong triangle na to, kaya sinabing special case siya ng parallelogram law, it also the same figure nito, no? Kaya special case lang siya. Okay? So ito, ang nangyari, si A muna, tapos nag-add ka ng B, no? Paano naman kung babalik na rin natin? Gagawin natin, meron ka munang si B, tapos si A yung i-connect natin dun sa head ni A, no? So, pag ganun daw yung ginawa natin, our triangle will be like this or yung other half ng parallelogram natin, which should also be equal dun sa value ng resultant natin. It means na although nauna nating or maalin yung mauna sa A and B, no? Kapag dinadrawing natin yung triangle, it doesn't matter kasi kapag pinag-uusapan natin si vector addition, yung result natin will be the same. So, ibig sabihin, ito, naka-note dito, by comparison, it is seen that vector addition is commutative. So, ibig sabihin niya, vectors can be added together in any order. Okay? It can be A plus B or B plus A. And that will yield with the same answer or same resultant vector. Okay? Alright, so after that, ito yung sa vector addition, no? We have a special case also na if two vectors are collinear. Pag sinabi naman collinear, they are acting on the same line. Okay, like this figure, no? So, I'm not sure if you can see the figure. Okay, let me So this is the figure. And so as you can see, yung ating vector A and vector B lies on the same straight line. So yung resultant daw niya can easily be identified as the algebraic sum lang. O ipag-add mo lang mismo yung value ito. So yung R niya is kung ano yung value ng vector A plus vector B. Okay? So mas maganda kung collinear yung ating forces, mas madali yung magiging answer natin. Alright? And then next we have vector subtraction. Pero what is special with vector subtraction is it can also be represented as vector addition, no? Kasi 'di ba, kapag halimbawa A minus B, we can represent that as A plus negative B, no? So same lang 'yan. So ibig sabihin addition pa din siya. So kung ano yung pinag-usapan natin dito sa vector addition, it will also apply in vector subtraction. So kung dito, we have A plus negative B. So si negative B, kung ang sense na positive natin will be always to the right, ibig sabihin ni negative B, that will be to the left, no? So kung i-construct natin yung parallelogram lang, law niya, so si A, and then yung negative B natin will be to the left. So pinag-connect natin yung kanyang tails para magkameron tayo ng concurrent point. And then yung mga naka-parallel na lines, then we have our intersection. And then from our concurrent point going to the intersection point of the parallel lines, we will be forming yung R natin, which is the resultant of our vectors, no? Yung vector subtraction natin. And then by triangle rule, we can either select this side of the parallelogram to represent yung triangle na to, okay? And then or this triangle to represent this triangle, okay? So you can see, kung sabi ko nga, kung as stated sa rule ng parallelogram, kung ano yung value ng side na to, ito din yung value ng side na to. Kaya makikita nyo, negative B din siya, no? Kung ito ay A din syempre ito. So yung isang figure na hinahanap natin is anong itsura? So yung itsura ng isang figure is ito yung sorry, yan. Ito yung kanyang negative B, and then ito yung kanyang A, yung A, and then this will be our resultant. Okay? So, that is the other side of the parallelogram na also show yung relationship ng vector subtraction natin. Okay? And then we have ayan, vector addition of forces naman, no? So, experimental evidence has shown that a force is a vector quantity since it has a specified magnitude, direction, and sense, no? So, and it adds according to the parallelogram law. So, two common problem in statics daw involve either finding yung resultant force ay yung addition ng mga forces or hinahanap yung tinatawag natin component or i-resolve natin yung force natin into two components. Later, i-discuss natin yan. Pero let us talk about muna doon sa finding ng resultant force. So let's say we have a hinge, no? Hinge ang tawag dito. So it is a type of support na meron siyang forces as shown, no? Meron tayong force na directed dyan pataas and meron tayong force directed pababa. So to find its resultant force, we can apply yung parallelogram law natin. So by applying yung kanina, no, yan, yung mga parallel lines natin, makikita natin na meron tayong intersection point and then ito yung co-connect natin. Which is ito yung nangyari sa B, no? Yan yung naging figure niya. So after ma-identify natin yan, pwede natin i-isolate yung half of the parallelogram or yung triangle to represent itong triangle na to. And when you can see a triangle like this one, no? We can use yung ginagamit natin sa geometry na sine law tsaka cosine law, which is presented dito, no? So paano ba ginagamit yan as a review? So si sine law, ibig sabihin niya, si side A, ito yung si side A, no? Over sine A, ito yung angle niya, equals daw siya dun sa B over sin B sa C over sin C, no? So kahit i-equate mo ay si A at si C, pwede yan. Si A at si B, pwede. Si B tsaka si C, pwede, no? So pwede mo siyang pag-equatein kaya siya equal with each other. And then si cosine law naman, ang rule naman niya, kailangan ang hinahanap natin is yung unknown side and ang given side natin is two adjacent side. Ibig sabihin magkadikit na side and included angle, no? So kailangan meron kang adjacent side tsaka included angle. So ang ano lang naman 'yan para madaling ma-form, kung ano yung nasa kabila, no? Kung ano yung nakatapat dun sa adjacent na angle o yung sa included angle niya, yun yung pwedeng side mong makuha, no? Tapos equal siya dun sa square nung adjacent side which is a squared plus b squared minus 2 times ab cosine c, no? So later siguro meron tayong example kung paano mas madaling matandaan to, no? Pero you should be familiar with this one kasi ito ay na-discuss na sa geometry ninyo. Okay? Pero we will talk about it later, no? So, ganito yung paghanap ng resultant. Now, paano yung pagkukuha ng components ng force, no? So, ano ba yung components? So sometimes, necessary to resolve yung force natin into components. Ibig sabihin ng components, we are getting the equivalent force or equivalent fraction ng force along dun sa axis na present meron tayo. So, let's say, meron tayong force applied na nakaganyan, ano? And then we have axis na U tsaka V. Okay? Para makuha natin yung component niya, kailangan kukunin mo yung force along dito and along dito. Along dun sa dalawang axis natin. Kumbaga parang si F is yung pinaka-resultant force natin. And then, kinukuha natin yung forces na nag-contribute kung paano nagkameron tayo ng resultant na yan. So parang pag component na pinag-uusapan, na reverse process siya. So kanina, meron tayong given dalawang force, tapos pinagko-combine natin. Pag kinukuha mo yung component ng force, meron kang resultant, kukunin mo yung forces na nagko-contribute kung paano naging siyang ganun yung value niya, no? So dito, along dun sa axis natin na U, and along dun sa axis na V, okay? And then we will also form a triangle. And once we form the triangle, we can use itong ating sine law and cosine law to solve for the missing side o yung missing na value natin. Okay? And then next, we have yung addition of several forces. So, so far, pinag-uusapan natin, always two lang na forces, no? When it comes to two or more forces na kailangang i-add, one rule na pwede natin gawin is to apply yung parallelogram in successive na turn, no? So, let's say, dito meron tayong tatlong forces. We have si F1, F2, tsaka F3. Para makuha yung resultant niyan, ang kailangan kunin mo muna yung resultant nung unang dalawa. So, halimbawa ito si F1 muna at saka si F2. So, para makuha yung resultant niya, so, ano mo yung mga parallel lines niya, and then yung intersection. So, dodraw mo yung resultant line. And then this vector will represent ngayon yung force F1 at F2, no? Pag napag-plus mo na siya. And then, ngayon, pag na-identify mo siya ulit, kukunin mo ulit yung nakaparallel dito sa dalawa, and then kunin mo yung intersection, and then that will be the final resultant ng force natin. So you can imagine kung halimbawa 5 forces yan, you will repeat the same process 4 times, no, to get dun sa final answer natin. And using parallelogram law, requires extensive geometric and trigonometric calculation kasi kailangan mo ng mga angle eh. And it will become very tedious kapag madami na yung forces natin. Instead, yung solution para sa ganong cases is through the use ng rectangular component method na i-discuss natin after na examination. For now, we will just focus on using parallelogram law and triangle rule to solve for the missing forces na hinahanap natin. Okay? So, so procedure for analysis. So, ito, step natin na pwedeng gamitin in order to solve dun sa mga missing values natin. So, problems that involves the addition of two forces can be solved as follows. By parallelogram law, so halimbawa meron tayong dalawang forces, gagawin natin, construct natin yung parallelogram to get FR. And then once we have yung FR natin, pwede na natin gamitin yung sine law or cosine law natin. Ang bawa naman, si F naman yung kailangan natin i-resolve. Ganun pa din, i-construct natin yung parallelogram natin and then kukunin natin yung side, yung sense ng force natin along dun sa axis na dinro natin to get yung component ng magnitude natin. So we have to label all the known and unknown forces para mas madali natin ma-identify kung aling side yung kailangan natin i-solve. Okay? That is using parallelogram law. And then when we are using na yung figure ng parallelogram o yung triangle, we now use ito nga, yung sine law and cosine law natin. Okay? So from this triangle, the magnitude of the resultant can be determined using law of sines and law of cosines. Okay? And then the magnitudes of two forces components are determined from this law of sines. Okay? So let us now apply this procedure sa mga problem, no? So I have here four problems and then we will start off with the first one muna. Okay? So the first one, we have a screw eye subjected to two forces. Yung screw eye natin, so ito yun, ano? May two forces siya. We have yung F1 and F2. So determine the magnitude and direction of the resultant force. So pinapahanap yung resultant force natin. So maganda is to represent muna yung figure natin into much simpler diagram, no? Natawag natin free body diagram. So dito lalagay natin yung ano natin, yung forces natin. So ito yung F2, 150. And then yung F1 natin is 100. Okay? That is in newtons, Tapos lagay natin yung kanyang mga angle, no? So we have here 15 degrees and then we have here 10 degrees. Okay? So, kailangan i-construct daw natin yung resultant force. So, ang gagawin natin, according dun sa ating rule, kailangan draw natin yung mga parallel na lines, no? Doon sa F2, parallel sa F1. Okay? Then, kung saan siya mag-intersect, ito daw yung intersection niya, that will be the location of our resultant. Ayan. Yan yung resultant natin. Tawagin natin FR. Okay? So para ma-solve yan, kailangan natin kunin yung kabuuan ng ating parallelogram. So this is F2. So ibig sabihin same length niya to, no? So ibig sabihin ito, pwede natin ilagay dito si F2 din. Si F2, yes. 150 newtons. And then makikita nyo may mapuform na tayong triangle, no? Ano yung triangle na yun? Nasaan? So, ito yun, ano? Ayan. And pag ganyan, kailangan i-identify natin yung mga angles, no? So dito, so you can see meron tayong 15 inclination ito and then ito, meron siyang 10. Sa isang perpendicular axis natin, ilan siya? Diba ang total niya ay 90, no? So ibig sabihin, itong angle na to, itong kabuuan na angle na to, yan, tawagin natin halimbawa theta, no? Yung theta na yan, pwede natin ma-solve as 90 minus yung 10 degrees minus 15. Ibig sabihin, ito yung total angle na 90. Meron na daw tayong 10, meron na tayong 15, ilan na lang yung titira? Yun yung theta. Okay? Or gawin natin, ibahin natin to. Gawin natin tong 90 degrees is equals to 10 degrees plus theta plus 15 degrees. So, kailangan natin ay si theta lang. Kaya 90 minus 10 minus 15 for theta natin is 65 degrees. Okay? Ngayon, 65 daw doon. Eh, di ba, naka-parallelogram tayo. Okay? Kung 65 to, definitely 65 din ito. Okay? And then, ano yung magiging value nitong angles na to? Sabihin, itong angles na to. Sorry. Yan. Anong magiging value niyan? Magiging value niyan will base dun sa interior angle ng parallelogram natin. And ilan ba siya? Di ba ang rectangle, ganyan yung itsura, no? Meron siyang 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. So ilan yan? We have 90 times 4, 360. Eh si parallelogram pa lang, parang in-slide mo lang si rectangle. So ibig sabihin, 360 pa din yung total niya. So kung meron ka ng dalawang 65, itong dalawa equal dapat to, no? Tawagin natin tong beta, no? Yan, equal yan. So, para makuha yon, we have 360 is equals to 2 times nung 65 plus 2 times nung beta. So, para makuha si beta, so beta is equals to 360 minus 2 times 65. Then, divide natin by 2. So, yung beta is 360 minus 2 times 65 divided by 2. That is 115. So, ibig sabihin, ito, ang angle nito is 115. And ito ay 115. Okay? So, pag in-isolate natin yung triangle natin, okay. So, ito yung 115 natin. Ito ay 150. Ito ay 100. Ito yung FR natin. Okay. Ngayon, pinapanap yung magnitude and direction ng ating resultant force, no? So, dito pa lang, meron ka ng dalawang adjacent side tsaka included angle. Pwede mo na makuha si FR using cosine law. And si cosine law, ang formula niya is yung opposite side nito, ibig sabihin katapat na side. Okay? So, FR squared is equals to kung ano yung adjacent natin. Ito yung adjacent. So, adjacent natin, 150 square plus 100 square minus 2 times 150 times 100. Tapos cosine nung included angle natin, which is 115. Okay? Performing that value sa calcu. So, 150 square plus 100 square minus 2 times 150 times 100. Cosine of 115. And then, i-square root ninyo para makuha yung answer na 213 newtons. Okay? So, yan yung nakuha natin. So, ni-round off ko na kasi 3 significant figures, no? So, ito daw yung magiging value ng FR. Okay, ng resultant natin. Next, kailangan natin is yung direction niya. So, ibig sabihin, yung angle niya mula dito sa reference axis natin, papunta dito. Okay? Eh, alam natin, meron tayong 15, no? Meron tayong 15. Wala pa tayo nito. Ibig sabihin, itong portion na to, wala pa tayo. Okay? So, paano makukuha itong portion na to? Tawagin natin siyang alpha. Okay? Paano natin makukuha si alpha? By using sine law naman. Okay? So, si sine law, ang ano lang niya, yung side natin over yung katapat niyang angle, then yung side natin over katapat na angle. So, this will be 150 over sine alpha is equals to FR over sine 115. And na-calculate na natin si FR. Pwede natin makuha si sine alpha. So, cross-multiply natin. 150 sine 115 is equals to FR sine alpha. Okay? Para ano yan, divide natin both side by FR. Tapos, magiging siyang alpha, i-shift sign natin or uh, inverse sign or inverse sign. So, 150 sine 115 over yung FR natin na 213. And value niya will be sine 150 sine 115 over 213. We have 39.7 degrees. Okay? Pero yan pa lang yung side na to, no? Ito pa lang yan. Ang kailangan natin is mula dun sa positive natin. So kung tatawagin natin halimbawa itong yan, tawagin natin itong phi. Okay? So si phi is equal sa alpha plus 15 degrees. So kung ano yung value ni alpha, so 39.7 plus 15 degrees. So yung answer natin will be 54.7 degrees. So yung final answer natin will be FR natin, resultant of 213 newtons with angle na 54.7 degrees. So ito po yung ating final answer, which is the one being asked sa problem natin. Okay? Okay. So by using parallelogram and the sine law and cosine law, we're able to get yung value of our um, resultant in its direction. All right? Okay, next one. Okay, so resolve the horizontal 600-pound force in the figure into components acting along U and V axis and determine the magnitude of these components. Okay, so pinapahanap lang yung magnitude ng component natin. So again, i-draw lang natin ng much simpler. So let's say ito yung ating U, no? Then ito yung ating V axis. Okay? And then yung meron tayong force na 600 pounds. Okay? And then kailangan natin ng resultant, no? So kailangan i-aalong lang natin 'yan. So kokopyahin natin yung ipaparallel natin dun sa axis na existing. Okay? So pag inano natin 'yan, ito yung parallel niya na axis. Okay? And then to pwede natin itong i-move, no? So i-copy din natin. Then this will be, yeah. Okay? Makikita nyo, may na-form ulit tayong parallelogram, no? Ito yung parallelogram na yan. So yung hinahanap natin is components. So ito yun. Ito yung unang component natin na along U. And then ito yung component natin along V. Okay? So yun yung kailangan natin ma-identify. Which is, itong portion na to is the same nito sa portion na to. Okay? So, FB. So may na-form ulit tayong triangle sa kanya. Okay? And kung may triangle tayo, we can use yung ating sine law and cosine law, no? Eh, ano ba yung mga angle natin? May angle tayo dito. Ito yung angle natin. Meron siyang 30 degrees dito. Meron pa siyang 30 degrees dito. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, ano? This angle is also 30 degrees, no? Then yung total niya, hindi. Ito. Para makuha natin tong angle na to, no? So pag in-extend natin, kung meron ka dito, itong isang to is 180, no? So try natin i-extend. Okay? Itong portion na to is 180. So kung ano yung value nitong angle na to, yun yung angle nitong value angle na to. Okay? Eh since meron na tayong 60 dito, so ilan na natitira? 180 minus 60, that is 120. Okay? And then, since ito is intersecting sila, no? Intersecting angle sa postulate niya, sa theorem niya, equal to, which is ito ay equal din dito. So, dapat 30 din to. Which is correct kasi yun yung total ng triangle natin. And ito, draw ko lang yung triangle natin dito. Ayan. So, ito 30, 30, and then 120. Okay? And then ito is may value siya na 600 pounds. Okay? Kailangan natin is si FB tsaka si FU. So para makuha yan is sine law na lang tayo, no? So sine law natin, so again, side over yung kanyang angle equals side over nung angle niya. So pwede natin lagay FU over sine 120 is equals to 600 over sine 30 equals to FB over sine 30. Okay? So kung FU muna, so FU over sine 120 equals to 600. So sine 30. So para makuha yan, FU is equals to 600 sine 120 all over sine 30. So FU natin by calculating sa calcu, 600 sine 120 all over sine 30, that is equal to 1,039 pounds. Okay? Then next is FB over sine 30. So galing to dito, no? Kinopya ko lang. Is equals to 600 sine 30. Mangyayari, magka-cancel out yung sine 30. So si FB is equals to 600 pounds din. So yung resultant natin will be this two na, no? So ito yung FU natin. Then ito yung FB natin. Okay? So, papansin niyo yung value ng FU is greater than dun sa resultant natin na 600, which is possible, no? Hindi siya imposibleng mangyari. So, possible siya and acceptable. So, sometimes component can have a greater magnitude than those sa resultant natin. Okay? So, yeah. So, ayusin ko lang yung sulat, no? This is 600 pounds. Okay? Next. So determine the magnitude of the component force F in the figure and the magnitude of the resultant force Fr if Fr is directed along the positive y-axis. Okay? So we have two forces. Itong force na to na 200 and F, hindi natin alam. Then ito yung mga inclination niya from the respective axis, no? So let's try to redraw again or yung free body diagram na tinatawag natin. Okay? So we have here 200. Then we have F, no? This is 45. This is 30. So, ilan tong remaining na to dito sa side na to? That is 60 para maging 90 yung isang side. Then dito, siya ay 45 pa din. Okay? Then sabi yung resultant daw natin is directed along sa positive y-axis. So, kung kukunin natin yung ano niya, no? Okay? So, ito na lang. Ayan. Nabawa, ayan. Okay? So, yan daw yung ating FR. Okay? So, pag dinro natin tong side na to, this is parallel dun sa ating F. So, that is also F. So, may form tayong triangle, no? Yung triangle na to. And ang kailangan, hanapin natin yung mga angle inside, no? Ng ating uh, triangle. So, ito may 60 tayo. So, ito paano natin makukuha? Pag in-extend natin yung line, itong line na to, okay? This angle is intersecting with this angle or intersecting angle sila. So, this should be 30 also. Okay? Okay. And then, this side is the same as this side. So, yung total niya ay 75. So, meaning ito ay 75 din. Okay? So, draw natin yung ating triangle. Ayan. So, 75 and then ito 60. And ang total ng triangle ay 180. So, ma-minus mo lang. 180 minus 75 minus 60. That is 45. Okay? Which is correct kasi ito alternating angle sila. Kung 45 to, dapat 45 yan. Okay? And then, ano yung ano natin? Ito yung FR natin. Ito yung 200 natin. And then ito yung isang F natin. So to solve for the value of F and FR, we can use sine law na agad. Okay? Again, sine ng side over sine ng katapat na angle equal sine ng side over tapat na angle, sinusoid, sine ng angle. Okay? So FR over sine 75 equals to 200 over sine 45 equals to F over sine 60. Okay? So, FR muna tayo. So, FR over sine 75 is equals to 200 over sine 45. So, FR is equals to 200 sine 75 over sine 45. So, pag kinuha natin yung value niyan, sine 45, this is 273 pounds. Okay. The next is yung F over sine 60 is equals to 200 over sine 45. So F natin would be 200 sine 60 all over sine 45 or equals sa 245 pounds. So this will be our answers. Ito yung value ng resultant and this is the value of the one component na F. Okay? So again, by using parallelogram law and then the formula for sine law. Okay? Then moving on with the last one. Okay? So it is required that the resultant force acting on the eyeball in the figure be directed along the positive x-axis and the F2 have a minimum magnitude. Determine this magnitude, the angle theta, and the corresponding resultant force of the given. Okay? So meron tayong eyeball. Ito yung eyeball natin. Then meron tayong two forces. Yung kailangan daw yung resultant natin is directly to the x. No? So, draw lang natin yung figure. Okay, and then yung resultant natin. Then yung F2 natin. Hindi natin alam kung saan yung F2 no kasi hindi natin alam yung kanyang theta. Ito yung may 60. Okay? So kung gagawa tayo ng parallelogram, ito yung magiging itsura niya, no? Kailangan ano tayo dito ng yan and then dito. Okay? Kung saan man yung intersection niya, dun yung extension ng ating resultant. Okay? Pero hindi natin alam pa yung value nung nito, no? Kung gaano ka haba or gaano ka inclined, no? Mula dito sa x-axis natin. Kung papansin niyo, itong side na to is the same as this side, no? Pero hindi natin alam yung inclination, so pwede siyang maging mas mababa, no? Pwedeng mas ganyan, so ganyan, mas ganyan. So ibig sabihin ito, pwede siyang maging ganito, ganyan, ganito. Okay? So kailan magiging shortest, no? Kasi kailangan natin is minimum yung magnitude. And napag-usapan natin kanina when we are talking about magnitude, it pertains dun sa length ng ating arrow, no? Pag ito, halimbawa, ito yung location ng F2. No? Itong F2 to. Ito yung kanyang inclination mula dito sa angle na to. Okay? Pwede siya magbago. Pwede halimbawa, ito yung inclination niya. So, mula dito, ito yung magiging inclination niya. Katapat nun. No? So, laging same yung angle. So, saan siya magiging minimum? Pag dito, yan yung length niya. Pag dito, directly downward, perpendicular yung length niya. So, dito, ganyan yung length niya. And then, ito, yung length niya. Saan nyo mapapansin siya pinakamaikli? Pinakamaikli si F2 is kapag perpendicular siya dun sa ating resultant. So, kung pinakamaikli siya, ibig sabihin, minimum yung length na yun. So, ibig sabihin, kailangan si F2 pala, para maging applicable, is dapat siya ay 90 degrees mula dun sa ating 90 degrees siya dapat dun sa ating yung theta natin should be 90 degrees para daw makuha natin yung minimum magnitude for F2. Okay? So, ito yung F2 natin. So, ibig sabihin, ang theta natin should be 90 degrees. Kung 90 degrees yun, yung ating magnitude na yun will now be a right triangle na lang. Okay? So, yung ating triangle doon sa parallelogram na natin. Kasi yung bago natin parallelogram will be like this, ano? Ayan. So, ito yung ating resultant. So, ito yung kukonsider natin triangle niya. Okay? Isolate lang natin yung triangle na yun. So, ito yun. Okay? So, kung ito ay 60, ito ay 800, ito yung value ng F2, and then ito yung value ng FR. Okay? So, by using, since this is a right triangle, pwede na ang Pythagorean theorem, no? Kung may mga sides tayo, and also yung ating trigonometric function. Okay? Yung SOHCAHTOA natin. Sine, cosine, and tangent, no? So, baka hindi natatandaan kung anong SOHCAHTOA. Okay? Kaya naging SOHCAHTOA. So, ibig sabihin, sine is equals to opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is equals to opposite over adjacent. Na ano yun? Yung angle. So, ano ba ito yung angle? Ang opposite niya ay ito. Adjacent niya ito. Ito yung hypotenuse. Kapag ito yung angle, ito yung opposite niya, ito yung adjacent niya, ito yung hypotenuse. Okay? So, yun po yun. So, dito, para makuha yan, si F2, this is yung angle. Pag ito ang angle, si F2 ay opposite. Meron tayong opposite, meron tayong hypotenuse. So, opposite hypotenuse is sine. Okay? So, sine of 60 is equals to F2 over 800. So, cross multiply lang natin. So, 800 sine 60 equals to F2 Multiply lang natin. 800 sine 60. That is 693 newtons. Okay? Yung value ni F2. And then we have, ito yung angle, katabi niya si FR, so that is adjacent, tapos matang hypotenuse. Adjacent hypotenuse is cosine. So cosine of 60 is equals to FR, yung resultant natin, over 800. So FR natin is equals to 800 cosine of 60. So FR is equal to 400 newtons. And this will be our final answer for this problem. Okay? So, yan yung values na hinahanap natin. Yung value ng resultant and also value ng isang component natin. Okay? So, I hope naging familiar kayo dun sa parallelogram law natin and dun sa paggamit ng cosine and sine law natin. And yeah, it will be very useful when solving for two forces. Okay. Next meeting, we will be discussing forces or two or more forces kung paano natin siya solve. So, hindi na muna natin gagamitin si parallelogram law. Instead, we will be using rectangular component method. Kung paano siya gawin. To solve two or more forces acting on the same plane. Okay? Or sabay-sabay na silang nag-act. Okay? So, for questions, you can raise your questions to Sir GC while you are reviewing for the exam. So, I'll be waiting for your concerns, and then this recorded lecture will be uploaded in your new element, and also the annotated file will be uploaded there. So see you guys again next week for our live or synchronous session. Thank you and